that Dr. Juan Jordan, MD, Charles Brooks, NP, and case manager Mark Shaw have brought the family medicine practice to a new level. Hear from the very people that benefit from the fine work they have done in this field. Next Generation MD, every first and third Thursday at 10 a.m. here on WOCA 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. When you get a car, when you're a young person and you get your first car, right? Mm-hmm. And the car has problems, right? You little by little start to learn what makes the car work, right? And if you decide that you're going to be a mechanic for a living, you really know what makes a car work. But if you're going to be a radio host and you don't really need to know what makes a car work, you just need to know enough so that the car can serve you, right?
Exactly.
And you know, do the maintenance and all that other stuff. And the same thing is true like when you're growing up and you have a physical human body. You know, if you're going to be a doctor, you might understand how it works. But if you're going to be a carpenter, you know, you let a doctor know. And I've always thought the same thing about religion. You go to Sunday school, right? And you say, you know, I really like learning this stuff, but do I need to know as much as the pastor? Do I need to know as much?
Right.
Well, if you want to get to heaven, you have to learn everything.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, there's so much to learn. And then you go from one church to the next, and they disagree on minute items about doctrine. But then there was this thing Jesus said, and he said, you know, as long as you have the faith of a mustard seed or the faith of a child or something like that, there's a couple of those, right? And I thought, oh, man, what a relief. I don't really need to know it all. I don't need to really cram for the finals, right?
Right.
But that is the book we're going to talk about. It's called Cramming for the Finals, New Ways of Looking at Old Church Ideas, and it is really an eye-opener. It is written by Reverend Dr. William Aulenbach. He's on the phone. He's a retired Episcopal clergyman. He's a speaker. And the book, again, Cramming for the Finals. Reverend Dr. William Aulenbach. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, Larry.
How are you?
I am very well, out here in sunny Southern California.
Well, thank you for getting up early to be with us today. Did you hear what I said? Do you agree with what I said, or do you have any comments about what I said?
Yeah, you know, I think there is an awful lot of doctrine out there, and it's very confusing, and I think the church makes some statements that confuse people. I see Jesus as kind of a simple man. He didn't have the complexities in life we had, and I think he has a pretty straightforward message. So I try to get to that message, avoiding the dogma and the doctrine that the church seems to thrive on.
Yeah, and I look at it as the same way I look at a mechanic. I mean, if I really have a deep question about religion, I'm going to go to a priest or a pastor or somebody who's really studied it like yourself. But in my own life, as long as I know, and it seems like this is a message of Jesus, as long as I know that, I just have to have faith. You know, I don't need to know every little thing about it. I just need to have faith. Am I right about that?
I think you're right. Faith with knowledge, a little bit of knowledge does help, but we have people who come to our church. We had a couple who came from Iran seeking amnesty, and they didn't know the first thing about it. And so we certainly didn't try to jam a whole bunch of dogma and doctrine down their throat. And we said that, we're really about love, this agape love and unconditional love. And if you get that message, you pretty much have the message of the church and really of religion, any kind of religion. Everybody really believes that their foundation stone is based on love.
I think sometimes some of the lessons that are supposed to lead to heaven actually do lead to heaven, but I mean pre-death heaven. In other words, I think our lives are more like hell when we kind of go our own way, and more like heaven when we follow some of the simple rules.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say in the book. I've been around for 85 years, and I'm Yeah, I'm really not seeing, even though it was part of the church doctrine I learned in seminary and graduate schools, that there's life after death. It doesn't make any sense to me in the 21st century when we do so much space exploration and we see people opening up new avenues every day about space that we never knew about. And as one Russian astronaut said a long time ago, and I've never run into heaven. I think heaven is created by us here on earth, and hell is created by us here on earth too. And we do have choices whether we want to stay in hell. And
right.
I ran a drug treatment program, and boy, I'll tell you, there were a lot of people in hell.
They were living in hell, yeah. But see, here's the thing. I already know that there are people who are listening who disagree with what you just said, and that's the problem that the layperson has when we decide this is the way it is because this is what I'm taught, and then we speak to somebody else who says they've studied it and say no, this is the way it is. That's when I say, why you're disagreeing? It's like there's a mechanic working on a Volkswagen. And there's a mechanic working on a Chevy, and they're both fixing cars, but they've got different ways of doing it. I always say, you know what? I'm okay. I believe there's a God. I believe there's life after death, and thank you very much. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, I respect people who say that to me, and people do say that to me. I'm pretty far out there on my theology. And so it irritates people, and that's not my intention of doing it. There are other people who are looking for some other ways to look at this thing. And I have a very good friend. He says, Bill, I can't stand your theology. I read your books once, and don't give me any more of that trash again. Todd and I are still very good friends. And he did admit one time he had read a couple other of my books too. But all I am is somebody who's throwing some ideas out there, and if the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't fit, keep on moving. Find your answers. If you have the answers that you need to lead a very fulfilling life, I'm not going to start messing around with.
Yeah, sure.
What surprises me sometimes is that there are different cultures and their religious beliefs are different, and they try to get along. But sometimes when you look at Christians like the Lutherans or the Catholics or what have you, there's some kind of discourse even between those denominations, which really boggles my mind because they're all Christians and they all believe in Jesus, yet they're at odds with each other sometimes.
Robin, I try not to be at odds with people. We have a lot of Muslims here. They came from Iran, Afghanistan, all in those areas. And my wife and I went to an iftar the other night. It was filled with Jews and Christians and the LGBT community, and we were all figuratively holding hands with each other, talking about how we can get along. And we go to these iftars because they are a chance for us to say, let's talk about our commonalities and let's not talk about the differences that can be so divisive. And at one particular time, I was a co-chair of the Orange County Interfaith Coalition. And we'd have two big conferences every year inviting everybody of any faith to come. And the interesting thing, Robin, was that we'd have about 6 people who would just give a 5-minute summation of what their beliefs were. There wasn't one, and it was never practiced, that didn't say, our foundation stone is based on love. And that's where I'm coming from. If we can hold hands and talk about love, that's great. If we can't, fine. I just don't want to. I don't want to spend too much time hanging around talking about our differences.
And I think that's the message of Jesus. I think Jesus contradicts much of the dogma of the Old Testament. I'm not saying he contests it. I'm just saying, for example, when they say to him, I thought we weren't supposed to eat this stuff, and I'm horrible at quoting the Bible, but he basically says, it's more important what comes out of your mouth than what you put into your mouth.
You remembered that one very well.
Yeah, but that's a good one, because it basically says,
it is.
I mean, this guy is teaching us to love one another, to be not judgmental of one another, to have faith in God. And in a way, it simplifies everything that was written before it.
That's exactly what he did. He was born a Jew. He died a Jew. If somebody says didn't you know you were the founder of Christianity? He wouldn't have any idea what they were talking about. But the cleverness of Jesus was to go back into his Old Testament, the book of Deuteronomy and Leviticus, and come up with a great commandment that we're to love ourselves, and this is a tough one, and we're to love our neighbor. That's including everybody, and we're to love our Creator and creation.
Yeah.
And that's the message. It's not so easy to put it into practice. I call it agape love, which is an unconditional kind of love. It's not easy to put into practice. It's easy to say, but it takes a lifetime to keep on working. How can I agape some of these people in the world?
Right. Oh my gosh. I think I do agree with what you're saying. And when I've had people say to me they don't believe in Jesus, I will say to them, exactly what did he say that you don't agree with? And they don't have an answer because almost everything he said, well, not take away the word almost, everything he said is probably something that they would go along with as far as loving one another. All the lessons he taught. And it's the same lessons that other, I guess, philosophers have expressed, except for the differences he was resurrected from the dead. I guess that's a big difference. But that's it. I mean, for me, that makes it real simple.
You know, I take the resurrection from the dead as a metaphor. If you go back into the history of that particular time, I do believe Jesus was crucified. But it took almost 60 years for them to come up with a story about the resurrection. It works much better for me as a metaphor in that you and I were talking about drug people, and I told you I ran a drug program at one particular stage. Here are people who are dead, but people who can find sobriety and keep their sobriety all of a sudden have a brand new life again. A dead man getting up walking in the 21st century just doesn't cut it for me. And I know that's offensive to some people, but I don't mean to be offensive. I just mean there's other ways to look at it, and we come up with the same answer on the bottom.
Well,
the bottom is that we all make mistakes, and this is our Good Friday, and we have a chance, especially with agape love, of taking that terrible experience and making it work for us in our life. Okay. You know, my wife and I, we've had some of these tough experiences, and we're very glad that we have a way that we can make it a positive. I call it making lemonade out of lemons.
I think that Jesus did physically resurrect. That's my belief, and I'm not countering you, but I want to tell you something that a lot of people will say, that unless you believe what I just said I believe, that you can't be saved. But I think Jesus himself tells you that you are saved even if you don't believe that he was resurrected. And here's the point of the story that says that. He's up on the cross, right? He's getting ready to die, right? And he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." And he's basically saying, "Father, forgive every single one of these people. Forgive the bad ones. Forgive anybody who doesn't agree or believe. Just forgive them all." He never says only forgive the ones that believe in me. He says forgive them.
Yeah, it's very loud and clear. You know, it's interesting. It has been interesting for me in this journey when I clear the dogma and the doctrine of the church away, and I have a chance to really look at Jesus as a whole person. I see his message so very clearly. And his message is agape. The first step is we accept everyone for who they are and as they were. We don't make judgment. The second step is we use forgiveness an awful lot. It has to be paramount in our lives. To go around, walking around holding grudges against people is very counterproductive, and it makes us sour, negative people. Forgiveness is so necessary, and it's wonderful to watch some people. You know, I'll never forget the young man that went in and mowed down the Sunday school class, and how quickly those people forgave that man. Right. Not because he did anything right, they wanted him to pay the price, but simply because they didn't want to go around the rest of their life with this big chip on their shoulder. They wanted to go around free to be who they were. And to me, that was, you know, one of the epitome of the forgiveness doctrines is right away, as soon as you can, get it off your mind, move on.
Well, you talk about Mary Magdalene. There still are people even today that believe that her and Jesus were a couple.
I do, when I go back, and I feel very fortunate in the 20th and the 21st century to be around, and as a theologian, we have found all these documents, the Dead Sea documents, the Nag Hammadi Library, and we come up with documents that can shake our boots, and the Gospel of Mary of Magdala is just an unbelievable doctrine. There's only bits and pieces of it, so we have to do a lot of fill-in. But she talks about kissing Jesus intimately on the lips, and you didn't do that in that culture in that time unless for some reason or other you had a special relationship like marriage. So it doesn't bother me whether Jesus is married or not. In my own life, because I'm married, I want him married because marriage is a great institution if you do it right. And so, that again is dogma and doctrine. I don't want to fight with anybody over their relationship. It's just not worth it. Yeah. But I want them both to understand. Mary of Magdala was one of the most loyal people to Jesus there was. She's every place, all the time. And that's why I admire her as a great woman. And I think she was a great supporter of Jesus.
How far back in your life did you come to the conclusions that are in the book?
Yeah, this is a lifetime, Larry, of working on stuff. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I decided that the Korean War was over, and I didn't want to sit around and do a peaceful military, and I needed to move on with my life, so went to seminary, and Episcopal Seminary in Berkeley, and I had a good friend in the Marine Corps. I was a tank officer, and he was a supply officer in the Air Wing, and Brad and I both went to CDSP, Church Divinity School of the Pacific in Berkeley, and in our second year, we were both taking... we were on our motorcycles. Berkeley's a tough town to park in, so we jumped on our motorcycles and started to go up to Tilden Park, and a fire engine came down and hit us both broadside. Brad was killed instantly, and for some reason or other, I'm still here, obviously. And the next day, a priest came into my room, and he said, what did you and Brad do that would deserve something this horribly? I couldn't believe it. I was still on anesthesia, but I shook my head and said, you just have to get out of my room and please stay out. That's when I really began, is there somebody up there doing this stuff? If there is, why bother going to seminary? Why not just eat, drink, and be merry, because it's all planned out? But no, there wasn't. There's a power and a force in the world. So I would say that was the impetus for me to really get started on this journey and question everything and find out what it is I do believe and what it is I don't believe. And that's for me. And so that's where the journey got started, and it keeps getting better.
You talk about symbolism between the cross and the dove.
Yeah, Robin, I used to have a collection of crosses, and one day I said, this represents violence and doing awful things to people, and sometimes people take that into Christianity and they feel it gives them permission to do violence. I love the concept of a dove holding an olive branch in its mouth that says we're peaceful people. We're here to make peace, not war. And let's make peace. And I just find it a much stronger symbol for me. And for other people, they're saying, this guy's nuts. But that's where I'm coming, and I'm saying to people, what do you believe? And that's my major point. What do you believe?
Do you believe that Jesus was a man, and but a great man and a great messenger, but not a deity? Do you believe he's not a deity?
Well, I believe in the divinity of all humanity and creation, and that's maybe a cop-out, but I really see him as a human being. When you do the historical Jesus, you realize it's a lot of years before a resurrection comes up. Paul talks about it early in his writing, but Paul had his own agenda, and he works much better for me as a human being, a prophet, and a sage. And I have a very strong faith in what most Christians have a very strong faith in, the basic doctrine of agape love. And whether I believe that or what I believe, it's that doctrine that moves the world and changes.
Do you believe in the power of prayer? Do you think prayer makes a difference?
I absolutely do. I start every day with prayer, and they say, "Well, who do you pray to if you don't have a God up there?" And I said, I use prayer most of the time to remind me of what I am to do as a follower. I am to love people, forgive people, care about people, accept people the way they are, do anything I possibly can to help people move on with their life. That's a pretty strong doctrine, even though I don't believe that he was necessarily the Son of God or all the things that the church puts on him. Yeah. And again, at 85, you can say these things and get away with it. Well, if I was 25, I'd never get away with it.
No, you might be right about that. I think, however, I think that a lot of us will probably, if there's an opportunity after we die to actually have a conversation with God or with somebody, which I don't know that happens, but if there was, I think we would probably find out that a lot of what we believed was wrong, but at the same time, a lot of what we believed was right, especially when it comes to how we treat one another. I can't imagine that somebody who wants nothing but good things for everybody else and to love his neighbor and to love his enemy. I can't believe that person, just because he didn't quite grasp the very, very hard to believe parts of the Bible story, whether they were true or not, if you don't grasp them, but you're trying your hardest to do what's best, I can't believe that God will just let that go and just write that off and forgive somebody completely in a different way simply because they said they believed and they got it, or they crammed for the test, as the title says, and got it all right. I can't believe that a bad person would be given more mercy than a good person.
You know, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of love, to me, is filled with every kind of person there is. And I know an awful lot of wonderful people who never darken the doors of a church. And I think if people are looking for a guideline, we have one. If people say, I have a pretty good handle on how to do life, that's great. And again, I don't believe in judgment. I don't believe there's an eternity where you're going to live in heaven or hell. I think we do that here. And I have to go back to Old Testament teaching saying we came from dust and to dust we'll go back. And that works for me because that allows me to have a rich, very fulfilling life here and not worry about the great pie in the sky and the great by and by. I want my life to be full and rich and very satisfactory here, and that's my main objective.
I have a copy of the book. It's called Cramming for the Finals. It's written by our guest, William Aulenbach, and you can call me if you want the book left for you on the desk. I'll do that for you. The rest of us have to go buy it. William, do you have a website you can direct us to?
Yes, I do. It's Peace, Love, Joy, Hope. That's pretty easy to remember, peacelovejoyhope.com. My blog's on there. I love to hear from people. I love to hear from people who disagree with me. I'm not in the market to say you have to believe what I'm in. I'm in the market to say, what are your beliefs and how do they work in your own life?
Yeah. Interesting conversation. Let me give the book away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Damn.
Who's this?
Hello?
Yeah, you got the book. Who is this?
This is Frank.
Hey, Frank. It'll be waiting for you.
I would like that book very much and thank that man very much.
Okay, you got it. Okay, it was a little bit echoey there, but thank you. Thank you for being on the air with us, Bill.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, Larry and Robin, and thanks for allowing me to maybe perk up people in the morning.
All right, thank you. We will take a break. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Erica Olstein. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine. Do you have a gout-ridden toe or bowels that move too slow, creaky knees, or how about an asthmatic wheeze? Then acupuncture is sure to please. Come visit me, your primary care physician, Erica Olstein at A Better You Healthcare. Call me at 352-615-5566. That's 352-615-5566.
PPIR is a networking group formed to serve the realtor and small business community. It primarily serves the real estate and construction industry, but is open to all businesses that provide any service or product to the real estate business community. PPIR has no membership dues or fees for attendees. The watchwords are keep it simple and maximize networking time. PPIR chapters generally meet once a month after business hours. For the information on this, call 352-615-9412 or go to events@ppirevents.com. PPIR, professional people in real estate. Animus Foundation is the name of the Ocala-based nonprofit sanctuary dedicated to the rescue and rehabilitation of wild and domestic animals. Animus, plainly stated, needs your 100% tax-deductible donation, which will go directly to animal care. This sanctuary is run solely on donations. There are so many questions to answer. Please call 843-6379, and they will explain to you how these creatures that live among us are cared for. Please call 843-6379. Thank you.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. A new legal action against President Trump. The attorneys general of Maryland and Washington, D.C.